Namaste Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravadi Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Dharma Pranam. Thank you all so much for joining. So, we had completed the seventh verse last time and last week, and today we'll be starting with verse 8. So, who can tell us what verse 7 was talking about? What was the instruction in verse 7? Just in a few words, a quick summary. What was the verse about? We should remember what we read last time, so then we'll be able to, understand the way forward. So that's why I'm asking. What was the verse about? Whatever you remember, you can just tell whatever you remember. It doesn't have to be the exact translation or anything. Anyone? Yes, Prabhu?
What your current self is asking, please repeat me.
I was asking that what was verse 7 about?
What? About that seven. Particularly, your
What?
current self has a straight tell about the glories of this chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Yes, Prabhu.
And
Thank you.
then how to we have to involve in that. And then what are the results to be we will get while chanting. To what extent
Right.
we will be free from all the
Mhm.
contamination of this material world. All
Hmm.
things were explained by your kind self, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. So the verse was talking about chanting, that how in our disease condition we are not able to get the taste of chanting, but then what is the treatment for this disease? That is continuous chanting of the names of Lord Krishna, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra specifically. Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. Okay, I'm sure all of you remember the discussion. So uh, now we'll move forward with verse 8. And like I had mentioned earlier also, that this great scripture, Shri Updeshamrit, is very extensive in its coverage of topics. So even though the book is not voluminous as such, but the topics that it covers, that extent is very wide, because it starts with telling us very basic things, how we should how our conduct should be, what are the do's and don'ts, what are the things that we should avoid, what are the things that we should do. Then it gradually just takes us forward, step by step, that okay, how should our attitude be towards other devotees, how we should make friends with devotees, very practical things also. Then how different types of devotees, how should we treat them, what should our attitude be towards them, our behavior should be towards them. And then it takes us to chanting, that how the name of Lord Krishna is just like sweet nectar, but in a disease condition, we don't really taste that nectar. And that was the previous verse, which Prabhu very kindly summarized. So that from there, now today's verse is going to talk about the mind. See, because I'm sure all of us have this experience that there is a big struggle involved with the mind. And the moment we start to, even attempt to chant or to read or to do anything spiritual, our mind really poses a lot of challenges for us, overcoming the mind is a very, very big thing. And that is why this verse is very crucial. And it's going to talk about the mind. And Srila Prabhupada's purport is very nice, gives us a lot of details about why should the mind be controlled and how can the mind be controlled. So that is where we'll start our discussion today. So let's start with reading of the verse. Would someone like to read the verse? It's same in the Brahma Samhita meter only we can read. Yes, Swati
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
Then
Krishna.
Rekha Mataji.
Okay,
Swati
Mataji.
Mataji, you can start and then Rekha Mataji. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Mataji. तन्नामरूपचरितादिसुकीर्तनानु स्मृत्यो कर्मेण रसना मानसी नियोज्य
Yeah, Mataji, we're not able to hear you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Shall I try Mataji?
Yes, yes, Prabhu, you can try.
Hare Krishna.
तन्ना तन्नामरूपचरितादु सुकीर्तनान् स्मृत्यो क्रमेण सरसनानुमनसि नियोज्य तिष्ठन् व्रजेतनुरागि जनानुगामि कालं नयेदखिलमित्युपदेशसारम्. Hare
Hari
Krishna
Bol. Thank you,
Mataji.
Prabhu. Hare
Mataji, are you
Krishna.
able to hear me? Mataji, are you
Yeah,
able
now
to
we
hear
can
me?
hear you, Mat. Yes, yes, yes. In the middle, we were not able to hear. Yes, Mataji, please read.
तन्नामरूपचरितादिसुकीर्तनानु स्मृत्यो क्रमेण रसना
Manasi Niyojya. Okay, again, Mataji, there's some problem probably with the connection. Okay, yeah. Rekha Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
तन्नामरूपचरितादिसुकीर्तनानो स्मृत्यो क्रमेण मनसि नियोज्य तिष्ठन् व्रजेतदनुरागि जनानुगामी कालं नयेत् अखिलम् इति उपदेशसारम्. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna. Thank you,
Mataji.
Mataji.
Okay, Sudha Mataji,
Hare
you want to
Krishna
read the
Mata. Yeah,
translation?
Mata, can I read recite the shloka
You want
once?
to read the word? Okay, okay, yes, please read.
Hare तन्नामरूपचरितादिसुकीर्तनानु स्मृत्यो क्रमेण रसना मनसि नियोज्य तिष्ठन् व्रजे तदनुरागि जनानुगामि कालं नयेदखिलम् इति उपदेशसारम्. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Translation
Krishna.
should I read?
Yes, okay, Mataji, please.
Translation by Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braja, Goloka Vrindavana Dhama, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So this was now the the level of verses is going to change. We'll see that the the verses coming now will be talking about the highest realms of devotion. So as like I mentioned, the range of NOI. So that level is going to now increase. We're going to go to the higher levels of bhakti, and also the places where that devotion is practiced. All that is going to come up. So now we are moving towards that Bhav, Bhakti, and Prema stage, to understanding that level. So, like you all know that there are nine nine stages of bhakti. It starts with Shraddha, that is, having some faith. Then, when one has faith, one goes in the association of sadhu. So that is sadhu sangha. And then, when we are in the association of sadhus, they motivate us to do some devotional practices, do some bhajan. So then, bhajan kriya. And then as we are doing bhajan, as we are chanting, and as we are doing services, there is anarth nivritti, our unwanted attachments, they start to decrease. And then after that comes the stage of nishtha, ruchi, then asakti. So nishtha is steadiness. When there is steadiness in bhakti, ruchi is when we start getting the taste, and asakti is when we get attachment. And then the last two final stages are bhav and prema. So this the level of NOI is also increasing. It is taking us high into details of higher and higher stages of bhakti. And this verse is specifically talking about the mind. How we should train the mind, why we should train the mind, how there is, and Prabhupada will explain in the purport the importance of samskaras, then the importance of remembering Krishna at that last moment. The crucial thing about the last moment, the time of death, how if we are failing to remember Krishna, then how can that cause a disaster? So, like they say, that failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So we cannot just take it for granted that, okay, now we have started chanting. I'm chanting, I'm attending some classes. Once in a while, I go to the temple, life is set. No, there is a constant preparation that needs to happen. Even in this world, if we see anyone who's wanting to learn any skill in this world, or our education also, it took us so many years of dedicated school, college, and study, and tuitions, and coaching, and all that. That's when we were able to get a degree of this world. Now, the goal that we now have is to achieve Krishna Prem, love for Krishna. That is the highest goal, more higher than anything that we have ever achieved in this world. It is of a totally different level. So, if we have such a high goal, how much effort and how much hard work and sincerity we need to put in for that. So, that's why, all these things are being told to us. So, we become very alert and we don't just take it for granted. This process of reading books, that's why it's so important, because now see, when we are reading this particular verse, we understand that, like in this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami is saying that it's not just a matter of 1 or 2 hours during the day, but 24 hours a day. We should be nicely engaged in chanting and remembering the Lord's Nam, Roop, Gun, Leela. And, that's how we should utilize our time fully. And then he's saying that in this way one resides in Braj. So residence in Braj is not just a physical residence that only if we go and stay in Braj Dham, that is Braj. No, Vrindavan is not just a physical place. Vrindavan is also a level of consciousness. So we have to make our surroundings like Vrindavan. We have to make our heart like Vrindavan. So there is so much work to be done. Where is the time to sit and ponder about the petty matters of this world? And where is the time to actually waste it or do any kind of time pass? So in a devotee's life, there is shortage of time. The time is actually short. There is so much to do. There is so much chanting and hearing to do. There is so much of seva to be done, and that's why, when we are reading through these Shastras and these beautiful purports of Srila Prabhupada, we become very alert that, okay, we don't have to waste time. We have to use every single second very, very carefully. And I was hearing His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Swami Maharaj, that he said that at the end of the day, when when all the day is over, everything is done, he's about to sleep, he just thinks that, did I use the day correctly? Did I waste time anywhere? That's what he thinks. So it's a learning for us too, that we can also do this. And there will be, I'm sure, at least in my life, where there are gaps where we are really, there is potential to do spiritual activities which I'm not doing. So it's a learning like that. So in this verse, it's like something that is so much for us to think about. That, am I really doing it all the time? Really, am I using my day fully? Okay, maybe right now we're not in a stage where in our sleep we are thinking of Krishna. Devotees, when they are completely engaged and fully, when they are on that level, then their sleep is also Krishna conscious, because they just, it's full of remembrance of Krishna. So maybe that we don't have control over right now. But what are the other things? The hours that we are awake, we have control over those hours. So are we really utilizing it fully in Krishna's service? That is a question we need to ask. And then about the mind, Srila Prabhupada is going to tell us in the purport about the mind. Very, very important point. So let's start reading and we'll start discussing. So would someone like to read the purport? Yeah. Swati Mataji, you've raised your hand. You want to read the first part?
Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna conscious movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only for this life but also of many lives of the past. These impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produce contradictory pictures. In this way, the mind function when become dangerous for a conditioned soul. Students of psychology are aware of the mind's various psychological changes. In Bhagavad Gita 8.6, it is said
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Not able to hear you. Maybe there's some problem with Mataji's connection.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, yes. Please read.
यं यं स्वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजन्त्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तं एव इति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare
Thank you so much. So in this paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining that the mind can be our enemy, the mind can be our friend. So we have to train our mind so that it becomes our friend. And Prabhupada says that the Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. Okay, now this is a very powerful statement. And this verse, see, as the translation reads, it says, the essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord. So, in one way, the instructions, they kind of are uh, coming to a conclusion in this verse, because after this there is glorification of Braj and all those topics come. So this is a very important instruction, and what comes in between of us trying to chant all the time is really our mind. So the essence of all advice is that one should follow the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees. One should be deeply attached to devotional service. That is the advice being given in this verse. And Prabhupada is saying that the Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. So, this verse is telling us that we should be engaged in Krishna's business 24 hours a day, but the mind does not allow us to do that. So, Prabhupada is saying that our movement is designed so that we are able to train our mind to be always engaged in Krishna's service. Now, in the seven purposes of ISKCON, we read controlling of the mind is not really written there specifically, but everything that we are supposed to do is actually to train the mind only. The focus is to train the mind. Yoga means to connect to Krishna. So it's a reconnection based on reorientation of our mind, because it is the mind that is disconnected from Krishna. We may be chanting, we may be doing our services, but it is the mind which keeps, taking us away, which keeps distracting us, which keeps alluring us towards the other things. So, Prabhupada, the seven purposes that he's given, all those activities and all the different sevas that we have, is so that the mind is actually trained properly to go in its natural position of remembrance of Krishna. The mind right now is attracted to material things, and we need to get it inclined towards Krishna. And then naturally, the perfection of yoga is attained, because we will be able to connect ourselves to Krishna. So, the purpose of practicing yoga is to get the mind attached to Krishna. Okay, and this whole thing of training the mind, controlling the mind, the whole discussion can be divided into two things. Whether, first of all, why we need to train the mind, and secondly, how we need to train the mind. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining here, and he begins the explanation with stating that the mind can be our friend, it can be our enemy, and if we want our own good, then we need to train our mind in such a way that it acts as our friend. Now, this is a matter of common sense, right? Anyone who does not have a controlled mind, such a person cannot be happy in this world and definitely cannot think of the spiritual matters. And when we come to spirituality, then this thing about an uncontrolled mind becomes even more glaringly evident to us. Because now we, like Rupa said, that you're chanting, you're following the Krishna consciousness movement is like declaring a war against Maya. So Maya really stops us through what? Through our mind and other circumstances also, but mainly through our mind. Like we discussed earlier also that the mind is in the habit of moving from one thing to another. So when we come to Krishna consciousness also, it doesn't let us be in the moment. So for example, when we are sitting to chant, it is always telling us, oh, this work is pending, that work is pending, you need to do this, you need to do that, oh, this happened, oh, that happened. It takes us all around the world. Everything that is going on in our life, all those thoughts will come at the time we are sitting to chant, because the mind is really not yet controlled. So the mind is very, very fickle. The mind, like it is, Krishna said, Chanchalam hi. Arjuna said, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. It is very, very chanchal. Okay, so, but this chanchal mind, this unsteady mind, we have to control it so that it starts acting as our friend. Otherwise, 24 by 365, we are staying with our worst enemy. So we can imagine how risky that proposition is. Even if we are slightly, against someone, maybe not an enemy, but someone we don't really gel very well with, we don't want to stay with that person even for a few seconds. Now, if we let our mind stay our enemy, then we are constantly staying with our worst enemy. So that's why, and we cannot really detach our mind and put it away somewhere, right? We have to stay with this mind. Even when the gross body changes, the mind will still be the same. That is why it is so very important that we make the mind our friend and we don't let it stay our enemy. Okay, that is where this concept of training the mind comes, that, okay, we have to do these activities and we have to not do some activities so that the mind get trained, and the trained mind then becomes our friend. So that is what we need to do. Otherwise, because the mind carries impressions of so many of our, uncountable lifetimes, that if we just don't work on it, then it becomes a very dangerous situation for us. And then, and why is this dangerous? Because then this whole thing is going to continue till the time of death. And then at that last moment, if our mind is thinking of something else, then gone. Okay, so that's why it's a very risky proposition to let our mind, just waver or let it be our enemy. So we have to work towards making it our free. Okay, now let's read the next paragraph. Would someone like to read?
I'll read,
Anyone?
Mataji.
Yes,
I'll read.
Mataji. At the time of
Hare
death.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity creates the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Sri Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and to taste only Krishna Prasad. Sri Rupa Goswami further advises, Tistan Vrije, one should live in Vrindavan or any part of the Vrijabhumi. Vrijabhumi or the land of Vrindavan is supposed to be 84 krosas in areas. 1 krosa equals to 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. This is further elucidated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.294. Krishnam smaram jnanam chasya pristam nija samihitam tat katharataschaso kuryad vasam vrije sada. Should I go on, Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, read the translation and then we can stop.
Yeah. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vrija and always engage in Krishna Smaran, Janam Chasya Pristam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So, in this paragraph, Srila Prabhupada is explaining to us that importance of that last moment, because Prabhupada is saying that at the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create the subtle form of a certain type of body in the next life. So our next, the next body is determined by what we are thinking of at the last moment. And like the Bhagavad Gita verse also. So if the mind is thinking of something not very congenial, then one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. That is why it is so very important that we are filling our mind with thoughts of Krishna. There may be some things in our life, some kind of activities which we may think that okay, this is not really offensive. This if I do this, then I'm not really breaking any of the four regulative principles. Such things. Okay, if we think that way and we indulge in some activity, what if our mind thinks of that activity at the time of death? If this activity is not Krishna related, then definitely it is our that risk that we are taking that if the last moment anything can happen. We can think of any of the other distractions that we let ourselves get involved in. That's why it is very, very important that our whole life is a preparation for that last moment. And Prabhupada says that if, on the other hand, one thinks of Krishna at the time of death, then done. All the whole purpose is then achieved because one is transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. So this process of transmigration is very subtle, and so we should train our minds, fill our minds in such a way that one is unable to remember anything other than Krishna. And His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Swami Maharaj says that is actually the real world, right? When we are seeing a photo of Krishna or a deity of Krishna or any reading about Krishna's pastime, anything, we should tell ourselves that this is actually the reality. What I'm thinking now, this is actually just temporary. This is not real. This is not lasting. My reality is there. It is waiting for me. So, just this thought itself takes us so much away from many of the things that we may be thinking about. See, there are some activities that we have to do. Those are part of our seva to Krishna because Krishna has given us this family or this work also is Krishna's work. So those activities we have to do. But if we take stock of our thoughts, then there are so many thoughts which come into our mind, which are actually completely not necessary and completely non-productive. So we'll discuss about that later. But here in this paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining what is Braj. When one makes Vrindavan his home, then Prabhupada is saying that it's not that, okay, you just go and, I'll just go and start living in Vrindavan. No, there also one should take shelter of an advanced devotee. Otherwise, one will not be able to really appreciate what is Braj. And we are going to Braj with the same mind. So if we go there and live in Vrindavan, but our mind is still thinking about all the other sense enjoyment, they were not really there. Okay. So then this beautiful verse from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu that a devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Raj and always engage in Smaranam of Krishna, remembrance of Krishna and his beloved associates. So going in Vrindavan and wasting time, no, that's not the thing. We have to go there, we have to engage in service of Krishna, thinking of Krishna. And then by following the in the footsteps of the associates, then under their internal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, that creation of that desire itself is very, very important because right now we have so many desires which are not Krishna centric. So, when we are trying to cultivate a certain skill in ourselves, then we should associate with the people who have that skill, right? For example, if one wants to become a very good teacher, then one should associate with other fellow good teachers. If one wants to become a very good cricketer, they should be in the association of cricketers. In the same way, if we want to develop this desire, this intense desire to serve Krishna, then we should surround ourselves and we should be in the association of those devotees who have this intense desire to serve Krishna. So then that desire then gets transferred to us also. So we have to be very careful about our association also. Okay. Now let's read the next para and then we'll discuss more about the mind control and other things. Would someone like to read the third paragraph? No? Okay, I'll read. Again, Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1 2
Hare Krishna
295.
Mataji.
Yes,
I
yes,
will,
Prabhu.
Mataji, I will read.
Yes, read. Sure,
Again,
Prabhu. Yes.
Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.295. Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi तद्भाव तद्भावलिप्सुन कार्या व्रज लक्षण सरातः. In the transcendental realm of Vrajadhama, one should serve the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, with a feeling similar to that of his associates, and one should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization when one is Siddha Purusha or a spirituality perfect soul. Hare Krishna Prabhu
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna.
Pranams Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So, from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu again, that what should we do in the transcendental realm of Braj? We should serve the Supreme Lord with a feeling similar to that of his associates. So, like the way his associate would serve Krishna, we should do that. And one should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and follow in his footsteps. Okay, so it's not like, randomly I'll just go to Vrindavan and I'll do what I want to do. When we go to Vrindavan, first of all, if one thinks of residing in Vrindavan, that should be done only after one's guru allows one. And then after going there also, we should be in the association of devotees. We should be taking guidance from senior devotees there. Okay, so the sadhana process has to be followed. Okay, and it's not like any other place that I just decide to settle somewhere. Vrindavan is the transcendental abode, is the dham. So it should not be taken seriously. We have to be very very respectable attitude we should have towards Vrindavan and staying there also. And as I mentioned earlier, if we are not able to go to Vrindavan physically, we should have that Vrindavan consciousness in our mind. We should try to make our home like Vrindavan because if it is filled with constant remembrance of Krishna, singing of names of Krishna, serving Krishna, his pastimes, then that place is also like Vrindavan. All the temples that we have, all these temples where we may have the fortune of going, that is also Vrindavan only. So it is the consciousness that really needs to be connected to Krishna. Now, coming back to the matter of the mind, because this verse is focusing on the mind. Let's discuss a little more on that. Like Prabhupada is talking about the last moment, the thoughts that come in the last moment. Why are all these things very complex? Because the mind is itself very complex. And why is the mind complex? Because it has impressions of our previous lives, uncountable past lives. There are so many anarthas that are affecting our mind because there are impressions of past enjoyment, impressions of past trouble, past anxiety. All these things weigh our mind down. There are so many things, in this life also, we may be feeling so many things which we don't really, which we're not able to associate. For example, if someone is very afraid of heights, they may not have any experience in this life where something happened because they were at a height, but still one is very afraid of heights. That means there is some impression of a previous life that is still carried down. So the mind is full of so many complicated interweaving thoughts, and it is affected by the lower modes of passion and ignorance also. So Prabhupada is saying that there are so many impressions in the mind, and then the temptations that come, they can affect us in two ways. One is if we see an object and we feel tempted, and the other is that the mind just reminds us of something, something from inside. Some desires may come from inside. So that also can, cause temptation for us. And sometimes, as if against one's desires, the past impressions overwhelm us. Sometimes it may happen that okay, things we're not really able to control what we are saying or what we are doing or what we are even thinking, because the mind is playing such an important role. All the past impressions are forming what how we are thinking right now, how we are feeling right now. So sometimes I'm sure all of us have that experience where we completely feel overwhelmed. Okay, so this is all because of the past impressions of this life or of previous lives. So, and these temptations or these overwhelming desires, when they come up, they may be really contradictory to our moral and spiritual values also. That's why Srila Prabhupada is saying that the mind's function can become dangerous for a conditioned soul. And Prabhupada states the law of last thought, in this verse from Bhagavad Gita that he has quoted. So the last thought is so very important. To get that correct last thought, we have to put in effort from now itself. Because at the last moment, the mind will generally think of something where it got the most shelter. See, because the death is a time of great fear and devastation. So when there is great fear and devastation around us, then we naturally run towards or we naturally cling to something that gives us the most shelter, right? So in our life, what is it that really gave us the shelter? And that shelter can vary from person to person, but the mind will instinctively go to that. Even in our current situation, if we suddenly get hurt or we are suddenly startled by something, what is it that comes out from our mouth? Many people say they call out to their mother, right? Like, oh, ma, something like that comes out from their mouth because they got shelter in with their mother. So that is the training we need to do, that we cultivate Krishna consciousness so seriously that we are getting all the shelter from Krishna, so that even when we are getting hurt now or startled now, Krishna's name comes out. So this is the kind of training that we need to do, because our mind will naturally go to that thing. So we have to train ourselves in such a way that our mind naturally goes to Krishna. Otherwise, the mind will go in the wrong direction. It is just two options. If you don't think of Krishna, you're thinking of some materialistic thing and then God. So this is how the mind can really play a very important role, and we have to understand that if we have to train our mind, we're talking a lot about training our mind, right? How to train the mind, why to train the mind, all these things. This whole concept of training can start when first we are able to detach ourselves from our mind. Okay, because right now we identify with everything that the mind is thinking. If the mind is dull, I am feeling dull. If the mind is jubilant, I am feeling jubilant. If the mind is hopeful, I am hopeful. If the mind is sad and depressed, I am sad and depressed. But we have to, first of all, be convinced that we have to take a step back and see that I am not this mind. Okay, this is my mind, but I am not my mind. I am above that. Above our mind comes our intelligence. So we have to be able to detach ourselves from the mind and see what our mind is doing. And this requires a lot of conviction, it requires a lot of practice. But first of all, we need to be convinced that our mind can actually act as our enemy. Therefore, I need to deal with the mind properly. And his Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu explains how our mind can be our enemy. He explains that with a very nice acronym, MIND. So here M stands for how the mind magnifies problems. I stands for how the mind imagines pleasure. N stands for how it neglects opportunities, and D stands for how it denies realities. So, we'll discuss all these things a little in detail. But first of all, we have to look at the mind before you look with the mind. Now, Prabhu uses these very nice statements. So, even one sentence that he says is so much, filled with content. So, he says that we should look at the mind before we look with the mind. So, what is our mind trying to show us? Before we do that, first look at the mind. We have to treat the mind as a separate person. So, when there is a person who's telling us to do something, if I trust this person a lot, then I'll do what they're telling me. But if I don't trust this person, then I will check their credibility before I do what they're asking me to do. I'll question, is it making sense what they are saying? Should I really do what they are saying? Is it really in my, it really beneficial for me what they are saying? We will always question that, right? If we don't trust that person completely. So that's what we need to do. We have to stop trusting our mind completely. We have to look at the mind closely. Is our mind lying to us? Is it trying to trick me? Then, after analyzing these things, then we should act, because it is not just spiritually but materially also. Our mind can really ruin us. It can really hamper our growth in materialistic life also, like things like addiction, etc. What is that? It is weakness of mind only, no? So materially as well as, more importantly spiritually, it can really trap us and hinder our spiritual growth. So we have to first of all be convinced, through reading of shastra, through what our acharyas are telling us, that our mind can actually become our worst enemy. So then what should I do? First, I have to understand that, okay, I have to look at the mind as a separate entity. And how can this entity really cause problems for me? It is that acronym of mind. So let's understand. Our mind magnifies problems. Whenever there is a problem that we are faced with, the mind tends to take us towards overthinking. Okay, we may have personal example about this also. That anything that happens, mind makes us overthink. Now, overthinking does not solve the problem at all. And in fact, it makes the problem bigger than it actually is. The problem becomes bigger and we become smaller because it has taken all our energy away. Just that overthinking about that problem saps all our energy. So we become smaller and our problem keeps becoming bigger and bigger. So Prabhu says that overthinking is like overcooking a rotten vegetable, thinking that it will become fresh. That's what we are doing. We are overthinking, thinking that this thing is going to solve my problem. But no, it is like a rotten vegetable. It will not become fresh by overcooking. So we have to just leave it away. In the same way, we have to just let go of this overthinking mentality. It is very hard to do, but that is something we need to do. When we stop overthinking, when we get a calm mind, That's what. And with that calm mind, we need to think about, okay, what is the solution to this problem? Then we can get constructive about it. But the problem is that a mind keeps us glued to a problematic situation. That makes us worry, that makes us gloomy and morose, and that drains all our energy. We feel dejected, we feel powerless, and then we're not actually able to do anything to actually solve the problem. So problems are there in all our lives. We can't deny that. But whatever we can do to solve a problem, we should do that. Overthinking is definitely not the solution. The solution is to become Krishna conscious. When we become Krishna conscious and not problem conscious, then we can calmly think of a solution. Okay? It's like they say that don't tell God how big your problem is, but tell your problem how big your God is. So when we stay Krishna conscious, when we are convinced that Krishna is on our side, then there is a problem that we have to deal with. So whatever practical steps are required, we do that, but we should not let the mind magnify the problems. We have to be observant that when our mind is magnifying the problem, and we should check it then and there. We should not let it trap us. So that's about M, magnifying problems. Next is I. It imagines pleasure. Many
Mataji,
times we just need to.
Mataji,
Yes,
sorry, Mataji.
yes,
Can you
Mataji.
please repeat that sentence which you said? First, look at the mind before you about this
Yeah,
magnifying.
uh, okay, we should look at the mind before we look with the mind.
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Next is imagining pleasure. Many times the mind takes us on this imaginary trail of pleasure. Oh, if I do this, then this will happen, and then I'll be so happy. And then, what, if I just do this, then I do this, then that will happen, then this happens. It is all daydreaming. But this daydreaming takes away a lot of our energy and a lot of our time. And daydreaming can also be about wasteful thoughts, and it can sometimes also be about immoral and sinful thoughts. So whenever we catch our mind going into this daydreaming kind of a mode, we should stop it because it's just going to waste our time. So sometimes if the thoughts are sinful, it can really be degrading for us also. Okay, it's not just a waste of time, but if we keep dwelling on those things, then we can actually end up making mistakes, actually end up doing things that we should not do. So even if the thoughts are not sinful, still we have to stop it because it's irrelevant to our essential interest. Like, for example, if someone sees a car on the road and then they start daydreaming, oh, what if I had a car like this? My car is so small, that car is so big and so beautiful. Okay, yeah, so that must be, it must be costing this much. Right now, I don't have that much money. So, what if I do this to get more money? Okay, maybe I need to change my job. Maybe I need to make this adjustment, that adjustment. It is just a complete waste of time. So, this daydreaming and this going into this mode of daydreaming has to stop because it's just taking away our energy and time. Now, here we have to understand that daydreaming is different from having a vision. It's not that we are saying that, okay, we should not have any dreams or any ambitions in our life. No. When we are when we are having a vision in our life, that is a great thing. We all should have a vision. But when we have a vision, then we are in control. In daydreaming, our mind is in control. Okay, so we need to have a vision. We need to have a high spiritual vision, a high goal in our life, and then we work towards it. That should be our lighthouse, our guiding star, our inspiration. Like Prabhupada, before ISKCON had grown, Prabhupada was saying that there are thousands of temples, there are thousands of devotees, only time is separating us. So Prabhupada was not daydreaming, Prabhupada had a vision and we know that he worked vigorously towards it. So that's what we have to do. We should have a vision which we make, not our mind, but we make. And we are resourceful. We work towards it. And the more resourceful we are, the harder the work we put in for that goal, the more spiritual advancement we make. So vision is clearly, thought out and we are in control. But and we do tangible things to work it out. But that is different from uh, just daydreaming. That is what we have to get away. So when the mind imagines pleasure, it also, like, I was giving this car example, that when we are thinking of pleasure, there will always be some imaginary problems also the mind will bring us. Oh, if I have to take a car loan, then how will I manage my finances? Okay, how will I do this? How will I do that? So this is all just completely useless thoughts. For example, if you're thinking about something, okay, let me have a party at my house, let me invite this person, let me invite that person. Okay, but what if what if this person also finds out I don't want to invite them, but if they get to know about it, then I'll have to invite them. Oh, then there'll be a dampener in the whole party. Now, what did I do? I just wasted precious moments of my life just thinking about something totally useless. So that's why we have to have our thoughts very clear. We should not have useless thoughts, and our priority in life should be clear, that is to love and serve Krishna. Leave this world, all these things which are just taking away our mental energy, unimportant things, we have to let go of these things. So as soon as the mind starts going to these imaginary rides, we have to stop it, and we have to become controllers of our mind. Okay, not just cheering our mind that, okay, yeah, yeah, think like that, do like that. So I was imagining pleasure, and N stands for neglecting opportunities. Problem is that our mind always keeps us either trapped in the past, or it keeps us anxious about the future. Something that has happened in the past, we keep lamenting about it, or keep feeling anxious about what is going to happen in the future. But really, if we see, the present is all we have. If we can do anything, we can do it in the present. We can't do anything about the future, about the past, and about the future also we can plan, but we can't actually do it right now. The action that has to be done now. Okay, we can learn from our past, we can plan for our future, but whatever has to be done now. Otherwise, we're just lamenting or we are fantasizing. So the mind, it keeps us, it makes us waste time in the past, in the future, and so we are neglecting the opportunity that we have right now. Right now, we have the time to chant, to read, to do seva in the present. So, whenever we are doing our chanting, our sadhana, attending classes, reading, we should be present in that moment. That time, we have to really stop our mind to think of anything else. So, we have to take care of things. We have to take care that our mind stays in our control. Okay. And when we focus it like this, then it requires a mode of goodness also, so that we are really calm and we are there in that present. In our present life, we should focus on what is to be done now. There are many things which are not in our control, so we have to really stop thinking about that. We have to focus on what we can change. And then when we show our sincerity to Krishna, then Krishna can change other things. Okay, so if we just keep thinking about things that I can't change, then we are just losing our energy. So, and that is, it's taking away, the opportunity, it neglects opportunities, is that the mind does not let us stay in the present and seize the opportunity we have right now. And lastly, D is denying reality. Okay, the mind comes up with weird thoughts. Okay, this process is not working for me. Oh, Krishna is not really supporting me. This devotee doesn't like me. Chanting is not really working. I'm so fallen. Nothing will work for me. This is all false. Krishna is there for all of us. Krishna is loving us so much. He's waiting for us. Okay, and the reality is that there is no one who's so fallen who cannot be lifted up by Krishna, by bhakti of Krishna. So the reality is that the opportunity is there, but I just need to take that responsibility. I need to work towards my spiritual advancement. So the reality is that the problem is actually in the mind. Our mind is the problem because it is denying the reality. Like I said, the real thing is our world, spiritual world, our home. That is the reality. But we keep denying it. And then we are stuck here. Right? So, in this way, in this mind, in this way, our mind becomes our enemy. And when we are working carefully, trying to see the mind as a separate entity and know that it is going to do these four things. It's going to magnify problems, it's going to imagine pleasure, it's going to neglect opportunities, and it is going to deny the reality. When we know that our mind is going to do these things, then we can catch our mind doing those things. And that's when we are able to really work towards making our mind our friend and work towards making our mind not our enemy, right? So, first of all, stop being my enemy and then start becoming my friend. Okay, so, but this is possible only when we are able to see our mind separately. So like that statement that, you first see the mind, see how it is tricking us. Look at the mind before you look with the mind. Okay, so we should not always, completely trust our mind and let it take wherever it wants to take us. So we have to be very cautious of that, and that is what Srila Prabhupada's purport is telling us to do. Okay. So yeah, we'll stop there. Any questions, any comments?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Mataji, so you
Yes, Prabhu.
are regarding explanation of this mind. So that is it really it touches our mind. Mataji, the thing is, if we go observe the mind, automatically the mind escapes. So by escaping that, we can able to know the reality,
Mhm.
what the reality is. The thing is, we have to make an habit to observe the mind, I think, as per as my knowledge goes.
Very true, Prabhu. Very
Uh, if,
true.
we- uh,
Mhm.
if we observe that,
Hmm.
that is you called as tickle mind means it has no strength at all. So that will escape from our vision. So then
Mhm.
automatically the situation will become calm. The thing is, we
Correct.
have to we must have an habit to see the
Hmm.
mind. So we have to see the mind through the mind only. Then
Yeah, actually, through our intelligence, we should see the
yeah,
mind through our
yes, and through
intelligence.
intelligence. Really, this is related to Bhagavad Gita. And then
Correct.
so
Correct.
mind
Yes.
is superficial.
Yes.
Intelligent is more supreme than
Stronger.
mind, stronger
Yes.
than mind. So
Mind.
that will apply that. And then in Bhagavatam also you can see in that prayena alpavishah sabhyakala
Mhm.
vasmin yojana that while leaving our body, so what we
Mhm.
have to do, that prayer is there in Bhagavatam also.
Mhm.
Mataji, 1 second, Mataji. सदेव देवो भगवान् प्रतीक्षताम् कलेवरं यावदिदं विनोम्यहं प्रसन्नहासारुणलोचनोल्लसा मुखाम्बुजो जानपतश्चतुर्भुजः Canto 1 9:24 1924. So in Bhagavatam class night evening class Mataji has
Mhm.
told me to recite this sloka regularly. So I have made this an habit to read this sloka.
What
So
is the shloka number, Prabhu?
1924.
1924. Okay.
सदेव देवो भगवान् प्रतीक्षतां कलेवरं यावदिदं विनोम्यहं प्रसन्नः सारुणलोचनोत्सथा मुखाम्बुजो जानपतश्चतुर्भुजः. Mataji, I
Wonderful.
have this sloka is I have got Kannada version, so I can't English. I have no
Okay.
scripture. I have to see in Veda base only. So
Yeah,
I
it's a
used to
wonderful
read.
translation. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
Prabhu. It says, May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Hari Bol.
uh,
Wow.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thanks Mataji. Mataji, by hearing classes and involving in devotional service, this companion of this association with devotees, really you believe it or not, making us one who is fully and involved in this. Definitely, we will get the treasury of this Bhagavatam Mataji. You see, this is not an ordinary thing.
True,
Thank you,
Prabhu. This is
Mataji
a
Hare
real
Krishna.
wealth.
Ah,
Very nice points, Prabhu. This is actually a real wealth. Yeah, because
Mataji,
uh,
Mataji. So, So if we last one class, definitely we will be losing so many things. So that will happen to me particularly. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. You are all great personalities, Mataji. I am
I'm
grateful
not.
to you.
Yeah,
Mm.
Prabhupada is great.
Ah,
Guru Maharaj is
of
great.
course,
But
Mataji.
yes, Prabhu,
Very
very
well.
nice point. Like you said, we have to observe our mind. We have to constantly observe our mind. And we were talking about the last moment. So Prabhu has quoted this very nice verse. So I'll share this in the group also. It's very, very beautiful verse. Yeah, and we can all try to memorize this and recite it daily. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And thank
Hare
you all.
Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಪ್ರಭುಜಿ. ಇದು ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಗೂನು ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ರಿ. ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ. ತುಂಬಾ ಸಂತೋಷ, ತುಂಬಾ and as Prabhuji was telling Mataji, it's really, even we miss one day also, we feel something big we are missing, whatever it is, however it is. And this technology is also so much advanced. Wherever we are, however we are, we can just put into the earplugs and we can listen to the classes.
Yes.
It's really we are hopefully we are making it, using it to the extent possible. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you
Hare
all so
Krishna,
much.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you
Krishna
so much.
Mataji, thank you so much for a very beautiful class. It's really needed in this Kali age. And thank you, Prabhuji, for
Yeah,
letting
very
us know very
nice.
beautiful verse. Yes, Prabhuji.
Very beautiful.
Because to
Yes.
control the mind is very difficult. So we have to
Correct.
watch our mind every time. Thank you so much
Yes.
for.
Thank you.
Mataji, please can you post the shloka with the translation in the
Yes,
group?
I'll just share the shloka, Mataji, right away
Thank
after
you
the
so
class.
much.
You.
Thank
I
you.
Thank you all.
things about the mind, Mataji. MIND, what you explained just now.
Yeah,
MIND, I'll share that. I'll share
yeah,
that. I'll share
Yeah,
that.
that's
I'll
also
do
very
that.
nice.
very
Thank
nice.
you,
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna,
Chaitanya
Mataji.
Charan Prabhu makes a lot of acronyms, Mataji. So he's very sharp. Prabhu, very sharp. I'll share that. I'll share that.
Yeah,
Is there a
Mataji.
special
Thank you so much.
group for this particular class, Mataji? Usually I log in through the Kannada class link. I log in, but is there a separate group for this one or what, Mataji?
Yeah, Mataji, we have ICF afternoon session. Are you not part of that group?
No, Mataji. Would
Okay.
you please add me to that?
Okay, Mataji. Can you just tell me your your number? You can put it in the chat. Then I'll add you.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you all so much. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
कोटि वैष्णवन की
कोटि
जय, श्री
वैष्णव
अवधेश
की जय,
अमृत
श्रील
की जय,
प्रभुपाद की जय,
रूप गोस्वामी की जय, श्री
Rupa
प्रभुपाद
Goswami
की
ki jai,
श्री
Shri
संत
Prabhupada
के
ki jai.
प्रभुपाद की
Thank you,
जय।
Mataji. Next of
थैंक यू
instruction to
माताजी,
Mataji.
हरे
Thank you
कृष्णा।
so much.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna,
Mataji.
Mataji. Thank you very much. I have posted, Mataji. My name is
Yes,
Chandralekha.
yes, Mataji, I'll add you. I'll add you to the.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Hare
हरे
Krishna.
कृष्णा।